And then I remember it was briefly superseded by the maxi skirt, which went down to about there. Do you remember that? And that, I think, was Faye Dunaway, Bonnie and Clyde that's popularised the maxi skirt. Didn't last. The mini skirt came back in again. Now, I'm not so good on female fashions, but I'm quite good on what was cool and uncool for men to wear. If you were cool, you wore a psychedelic shirt, lots of squirrely gig patterns, and you might then wear on top of it a kipper tie. Do you remember the kipper tie? Big fat kipper. And it was usually being a clashing colour with the shirt, so it looked horrible, but nonetheless it was cool. Tight trousers were still in. Flares hadn't yet come, they were a few years hence. And so it was the drain pipe trouser. And then on your feet, desert boots. And I've noticed that Prince Harry is now wearing desert boots, so fashions, they come and go. Do you remember the desert boot? Some of you do. And so that was the cool thing to wear. Now, if you were uncool, you would wear a tweed jacket with leather buttons. Oh, gosh, I thought of it. And then you might wear a Weyer shirt and a red tie. We can see George is remembering that's exactly what he used to wear. And then corduroy trousers, and then brogues. Do you remember brogues? I think they probably still exist. Brogues, yes. That was really uncool to wear all that stuff. Now, the whole cool and uncool thing spread beyond that, of course. So there was cool and uncool holidays. If you went to an English seaside resort, like Margate or Skegness even, that was decidedly uncool. Even uncooler if you went with your mum and dad. Let us go alone, as Liz and George both did. It's a long story. So that was the uncool holiday. The cool holiday was to get your Eurail pass, which meant you could travel anywhere on the train in Europe to your heart's content, and you could save on hotel bills by sleeping on the train, taking overland journeys here and there. Now, the really cool holiday or cool trip to make was, of course, the overland trip to India. Now, I did then, I didn't bother now, I aspired to be cool. So I went on the overland trip to India not once, but twice. I was doubly cool. And the first time I went, I did a bit of teaching, taught maths, but I also studied Hindu philosophy. I immersed myself in Hindu philosophy. Oh, I should have said, just thinking, going back to religion, the cool and the uncool thing. And now it was very cool if you were religious to be a militant atheist, as I was. That was cool. What was really also cool was to have an exotic Indian guru, the Maharishi or whatever. What was uncool, really very, very uncool in religious terms, was to be a Christian. Anyway, the first time I went to India on the overland trip, as I say, I immersed myself in Indian philosophy and that kind of thing, as well as do some teaching. Then I came back, spent a year here, met Sarah, and together we went off to India. And for me, it was very clear I was looking for my guru. And I assumed it would be some sort of Oriental chap, and the guru to teach me perfect happiness. Well, I had this fixed idea of where in India I would find my guru, a particular area of South India. Don't know how that, well, I do know how that idea got into me now. I didn't know then, but I was fixed that was where it would be. And so we took the train, South India, three days on a train, we almost arrived at the place. We were 3 stops ahead of where we were to get off the train. And a chap got on the train and joined us. And we got into conversation, and I said I was looking for a guru. And he said, oh, I got a guru. I'm on my way to his ashram. An ashram is a community round a guru. I'm off way to the ashram now. Come with me, I'll take you. So we said, yes, why not? So we got off the train eventually and went off to his ashram. And the name of the ashram was Krista Sishya Ashram, which means Ashram of the Disciples of Christ the Guru. We felt diddled. We'd come all this way to find an Oriental guru. And here we were in Krista Sishya Ashram with Christ was their guru. They belonged to a very ancient church that's been in India at least since the 3rd century. So it was quite natural that they should express their Christianity in kind of Hindu form. Our first instinct, or my first instinct, was to walk away. But Sarah was more sensible, and we stayed a few days, then we seemed to like it, we stayed a few days longer. They were very hospitable, and days turned into weeks, and I helped plant paddy, rice, and we helped build sheds and so on. So we were useful. And then they encouraged me to start reading the Bible. one of the members of the ashram came with me to a Good News, a very first edition of the Good News Bible it was. So I have a very sentimental attachment to the Good News Bible. And he encouraged me to read it, starting with Matthew and finishing with Revelations. Just read it straight through, like you would any book, and see what happens. And because I was still an atheist, he said, don't worry about all that belief stuff. When you come across the word God, think of the perfect human being. When you come across the word heaven, think of the joy of being perfect. Just read it like that. So I started reading the Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all that. And by the time I got to about halfway through Luke, I was totally enthralled, utterly enthralled. I had fallen in love with Jesus. I was captivated by him. I just wanted to be with him the whole time. I was more in love with him than I even was with Sarah, and that was a lot. I was completely bowled over. Now, this is all a Christmas story. But I'll tell you the joke. God makes jokes on us. And the joke was that I had to go round the world, or halfway around the world, twice to find what was in my backyard all the time, what was under my nose. That's God's joke. But as I say, I was enthralled with Jesus. And this is a Christmas story, as I say. And the Christmas bit is this. On Christmas Day, 1970, exactly 50 years ago, as the sun was rising, I went into the ashram temple, they call it the church, temple, and silently, just on my own, made my commitment to Christ. So I've been a Christian exactly 50 years. So hence the personal bit. Now let's just go back to being cool and uncool for a moment. Who do you think are the coolest people in the Bible? Well, I think by a mile it's the wise men. Think of the gear that they wore, all those fantastic clothes. Think of that exotic religion. They were Mithraists. How wonderful. And they have made an overland journey across Asia. They went the other way, of course. They went east to west, I went west to east. But it was an overland journey. So that wise men are really, really cool. And by contrast, who are the most uncool people in the Bible? By a mile, it's the shepherds. They didn't make any journeys anywhere. They didn't have an exotic religion. They were simple Jews. That's all they were. And didn't have any gear, probably a few woolen shawls, that was it. They were really, really uncool. But the point is that when they came to the stable and saw the infant Jesus in the manger, both were bowled over in the same way. They were both the same. Cool or uncool, it was the same. They were overwhelmed by Christ as I still am, and as I was first 50 years ago. So all those distinctions between one person being superior to another person, cooler or less cool, or richer or poorer, whatever it might be, all those distinctions we make to put people in hierarchies, all that floats away in the presence of the infant Jesus. So to slightly misquote the gospel, the uncool will be cool, and the cool uncool.